Welcome to Spaces Between, a podcast about bringing gamers closer together. I'm your host, Ray Candy, and with me today is a very special guest, Rainer. What's going on, man?
Hey, doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So if anybody doesn't know, Rainer is the operations manager for North America for Board and Dice. So I always see Rainer in a whole bunch of our chats, and I've seen him at some conventions and things like that, and it's always awesome. I was like, man, I should get Rainer on the show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's good to be here.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think last time I saw you at a convention, you were handing out this terrible licorice to everybody.
You know what? That has become a thing that I do. I always bring some kind of candy. I mean, sometimes I do bring some really good ones as well.
Yeah.
Like I brought some nice Swedish toffee chocolate candies as well. But yes, it was this hard licorice candy that has a pepper powder on the inside.
I made it through the whole thing, but it was not very enjoyable.
You know, it's one of those things that either you hate it or you love it, but you won't leave that experience and being like, that was just... So.
Yeah, I think I hated it, but it's all good. It's all good. Inflicting suffering on the masses, that's how you do.
Right. Now,
So,
it was voluntary, though, so...
I guess you're right. And it makes for funny reactions, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you definitely leave a lasting impression. There's that.
That's right.
So, what all do you do for Board and Dice? What does kind of like your role look like with them?
So we have our main offices. We have two offices in Poland. So basically what I do, so I'm the only one from the company that is based in the United States.
Gotcha.
Which is why I get to have a kind of a catch-all title for what I do, because basically anything that is related to the U.S. market, I'm involved in some way with that.
Gotcha.
We still have, in Poland, we have our head of marketing and head of sales and so forth, but then I'm still involved to help, especially giving a little bit of a cultural guidance on it, because the marketing looks a little bit different on the U.S. market than it does for our English-speaking audience in Europe. So little things like that. And of course, like you said too, I mean, any convention in the U.S., I'm always there organizing those, managing our presence there along with the volunteers and so forth. And then also things like this too, being the face as much as possible on different YouTube streams, and whenever there's one of our games that is streamed, I'm always there in the chat, or even just in general supporting media and content creators. For us, that's one of those things that even if you're not streaming one of our games, it's still important for us to be there and support the hobby, because what you do as media and as content creators is still valuable for the hobby as a whole, and we like to support that. That's
awesome. I know you've been doing a bunch of remote demos recently for one of you guys' newer games.
Yes. So that's one of those things that normally we would either plan
at a convention sort of thing.
Yeah, we would plan to basically either at a convention to do demos, or plan specific trips for either to meet with different partners. It could be localization partners or distribution partners or media and so forth. But because of the situation now with the virus on, then basically any of those trips have been canceled, along with different conventions and so forth. So yeah, we set up. So this is for Tekkenu, which is our July release. So it's scheduled to be released at the time of Gen Con, whether or not Gen Con happens. But we always do a global release. So even if you're not at the convention, you can still get it at the same time. But yeah, I've been running some demos. We set that up on Tabletopia, just in our publisher account.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that I can show that off and just at least give people an overview of the game and how it plays and everything. So
that's really cool that you're using digital mediums to show off your future products. That's kind of interesting. I wonder how the future of gaming works in general. If it just makes that sort of thing easier to show off. I'm sure you don't get to show the game in as much detail, but still really cool to give people a first look at that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's something that is going to be part of the future anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if it weren't for the virus right now,
Mm-hmm.
it was still part of our plan to use that digital platform as a way of being able to reach and interact with people that we might not be able to meet with in person. But it was meant to be kind of as a secondary tool, and now that has grown into a primary tool for the time being. But it's a good tool to use because you get to, even though you don't get to sit down at a board,
Mm-hmm.
you can still see everything with final artwork, different components and stuff. We can upload the STL files for 3D
Oh, yeah, that's
pieces, and
awesome.
so you still get a very close to real representation of what the game would look like, and just interacting with the interface of manipulating the components and everything. So it's a very good representation of what the game would be like in person.
Have you guys utilized any like online tabletop stuff for like playtesting stuff as well, or are you mostly just using it for this?
We have in the past we've done that mostly for internal playtesting. There might have been
Mm-hmm.
something that we set up
Right.
again, just set up a quick demo for something just to go through and interact with it internally, especially because we do have offices in Poland and then here in the United States. Otherwise, for the most part, for playtesting and such, we want to eliminate any hurdles that could come from using another tool. So that way, any real playtesting and especially during the development process of the
Mm-hmm.
game, we always do that in person. And that way, especially from a development perspective, if I'm having a group of people that is playtesting the game, that way
Mm-hmm.
I can more easily observe how they interact with the game,
Right.
make notes of are there things that are unclear and so forth. And that you wouldn't be able to do as easily in a digital environment.
Oh, for sure. So, if people aren't as familiar with boards and dice, what are some of the games in you guys' catalog, or what games should people be looking towards to kind of like represent you guys as a company?
So probably the two that we are the most well known for
Mm-hmm.
are so there are two games that came out in 2018. One of them was Teotihuacan, the City of
Mm-hmm.
Gods,
I'm glad you
because
had to say it and not me. Teotihuacan. I think that's right.
yep,
Yes.
and that one, I mean, that one has been a tremendous hit for us, done really well. It
Mm-hmm.
got nominated for both the Dice Tower Game of the Year and for Strategy Game of the Year, and won in the strategy category. So that was really exciting.
That's one that I've seen played everywhere, especially when
Yeah.
it first came out.
And that one is, I mean, it's a traditional Euro game, but it also has some very neat, just things. It has a very nice table presence with a
Mm-hmm.
a 3D pyramid that you're building during the game, made out of these really nice thick wooden tiles. And of course, the design pedigree. So it's designed by Daniele Tusini, who has also designed many other games. So it's that one has done really well
Mm-hmm.
for us. The other thing that is also doing well for us are the Escape Tales series. So right now we have two games in those series, and they're more like story-driven escape room games.
Mm-hmm.
So normally, a lot of the escape room games they are a one time you play through it in maybe an hour, and then you're done with it. These ones have different stories that you can explore. So you can basically, as you go through the game, the decisions that you make will impact the experience that you have, and then there are
Mm-hmm.
multiple different possible endings for it as well. So
I know for that one, when you guys were doing marketing, you sent like a teddy bear thing into the studio,
yeah,
and it was like with some postcard thing, and I had seen it online. I was like, wait a minute, and I was like, Tom, I know they sent us this cute little teddy bear thing, but I think there's more to it. I'm pretty sure that postcard thing says "Open my head," and he's
yeah.
like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure it's saying "Open my head," and so he like went and got a knife out of the kitchen and was like, it was insane when we realized, and then it had a thing that was like, "You're located in Homestead" and all that stuff. We're just like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
It made it
And
super
that
creepy.
one was fun because so there was a little digital chip inside,
Mm-hmm.
and we sent this out to a couple of different people, and then there was just a QR code that you could
Mm-hmm.
scan, and for each person that we sent it to, we obviously this was just it wasn't a publicly visible
Oh, for
page,
sure.
but it was one that you could just get to through a certain link. And but we put on there everything that we could find out about that person since we knew who it was sent to, right? And it's like, okay, well, we know these things about Tom, and we know where he lives, and we know information about his family and stuff, just to make it as creepy as possible. So yeah, but that was a lot of fun for us to create, and also then the reactions, because especially if you're not expecting that, and we had several, like Suzanne got one as well,
Hmm.
and she said that if it weren't for the fact that it came from us and she knows us,
Oh,
that
yeah.
would have creeped her out, because it's like it has personal information on there. And
So do you like trying to come up with those interesting marketing ploys or like abstract marketing techniques?
I mean, we do, like, we did a thing just recently as well when we
Hmm.
had the Dark Ages Kickstarter. We sent out basically as if people would have received a noble title and so forth, and had a very nice hand calligraphy letter that was sent, and everything. And in the end, we do this because we think that it's fun. We think that this is a fun way of interacting with friends in the industry, with media partners, and just sending something that is fun. And then if something comes of it or people enjoy it, well, then that's all we want, right? Is that someone receives it and gets some enjoyment out of it. So that's. But we always try to do something that is a little bit different.
That's awesome. That's like super creative and interesting. What do you think it is that like drives you to like want to work in the tabletop board game industry?
I mean, for me, there are a couple of things really that I mean, of course, it started as a hobby, right? I've always been interested in games in general, and even as a kid, even though this was back in the day of the older games that honestly were not that good, right? But we played those growing up, and I was always interested in trying to create my own games and just playing new things and so forth. And then at one point, it became something that it wasn't just something that I liked to do just to spend my time as entertainment, right? It was something that I became fascinated by different games and the design process that went into them, and just in general, when board games started to become just more prominent, and they like my entry into the modern hobby board gaming was Catan.
Nice.
And for me, it was just one of those things that I'd never played anything like it. This was very different in both the experience and just the whole package, right? It was something that you could play and enjoy as an adult, even though there were games that I played as a kid that I still enjoyed as an adult. But I felt like this was specifically designed for adults. It was no longer something that was geared mostly towards kids, right?
Oh yeah.
But then, aside from that being like a hobby, which was the entry point into this, today the thing that drives me is really being able to, regardless of how, but being able to be part of something that creates memorable experiences for people.
Yes.
Either being there and demoing a game, and I don't care if it's one of our games or someone else's game, but being able to sit there at a table and just being part of something, and an amazing experience that someone is having, or just sharing this hobby and seeing people, whether they are new to it or not, but seeing them experience new things and exploring just all the rich things that the hobby has to offer. That's really what drives me today, which really helps with what I'm doing as well, right? I mean, things like being and supporting different YouTube channels and content creators. I do that because I enjoy it, but
Nice.
it's also part of my job, right? But it helps that those two go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think there's nothing quite as rewarding as like having a game that you really like and know how to teach, and then showing it to someone and have them like enjoy that experience. And it's just like one of the best things in board gaming, I think, is just helping someone have an experience that you've had in the past and help them enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Well, and even some of our games, like Teotihuacan is a game that I've demoed it. I stopped counting after about 14 months.
Yeah.
But so in the first 14 months from when we first started showing it just at conventions and just not necessarily to the public, but just to different partners and so forth, I had taught and demoed the game over 350 times. And it was still something that I just enjoyed it every time because it was a game that, one, I believed in it. I believed that it was going to be a success.
Yeah.
But also just being able to share and have other people be excited about it, being able to have them have the same feelings of enjoyment and stuff. And that part, it doesn't matter if it's a game that I have played many times or if it's a game that is new to me, but being able to share that with someone else, which is why I think that even though I have played solo games, but I don't like to just game for my own, and nothing against solo gamers, right? But for me, it's about the experience that I have with other people and that I can share with others.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts about board gaming too, is just the relationships you build around the table and like getting to interact with people and like being able to just experience something through something as silly as a board game, being able to like learn more from each other and do different stuff, whether it be building a temple or stabbing somebody in the back in Battlestar Galactica. It's just fun to play these games together.
Yeah, and you kind of develop these. Like I have a couple of different. Obviously, I play with my kids and with my wife, and then close friends and stuff, and of course demoing at conventions and whatever. But it's fun also the different kind of gaming relationships that you develop. I remember that. So a couple of years ago, I used to play tabletop RPGs, and I don't do it much anymore. Not because I don't enjoy it, but because of time constraints.
Yes.
And there was this group that I was playing with. And we had one person that had to cancel last minute, and we were like, well, we didn't want to. It was a very pivotal part of the story, so we didn't want to try to do it without them, right? So we
for sure.
What should we do? So we played the Resistance, and the rest of the group, they'd never played any of these social deduction games before, so we played this straight for 6 hours, and it was just. It was an amazing experience, just being able to have everyone be immersed in this new type of gaming, right? Every now and then you have something new that comes out, and we played games before, but you have something that does just a little bit different with the tools that are already available in other forms, right? But they just innovate a little bit.
The Resistance is always a great game that lets you yell at your friends, you know?
Yeah.
I remember playing Resistance with my D&D group as well, and it was one of those experiences where it was just fun to have like more of that social deduction stuff. I had grown up playing a lot of like Werewolf and things like that, so I knew a lot of these other games, but it was cool to see one that was just so like structured, I feel like. So
yeah, for sure.
Lots of really good stuff. So I know that you are trying to like, I don't know the correct word to use, but like head up like the hot games room at Dice Tower West because you enjoyed playing at, or not Dice Tower East, I mean, since you enjoyed like showing a bunch of people games at Dice Tower last year.
Yeah, so we've been at what was before Dice Tower Con and now Dice Tower East. We've been, it's going to be our 4th year, I think. And we've experienced or explored with a couple of different things, right? We've both had a booth there, and we have been running different demos and try to figure out, okay, what's the best, like we try to cater our convention presence to the convention and to the people that are there. And especially with Dice Tower East, it's such a family and
game playing convention,
come play and we say, you know what would be the most valuable for me and my time is to simply just help people have good experiences. So I talked to Tom about it, saying, you know what, we would like to to sponsor the hot games area, and then be there, providing in addition to the excellent volunteers that are there, also providing some people from our end to help teach these games. And of course, these are games that are not all published by us, right? But by other publishers. And from our perspective, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting down and I can help teach a game and someone enjoys it and I get to be part of that. That's still valuable for, first of all, it's valuable for that person or those individuals that are at the table. But it's also valuable for me. It's a valuable thing for our brand, for our company, and that's basically the approach that we want to have when it comes to Dice Tower East, is to be part of that experience, be part of just helping people do what's really why we like this hobby, right? Which is to game and have fun together.
That's really awesome. Like, I'm impressed by your passion for it, because a lot of people out there would just be like, oh, we're gonna like demo our games and show our stuff off and try to push our stuff, but it's almost like you're pushing the hobby as a whole. It's like, you know, that by doing that, people are gonna like be excited about you guys' stuff, but also just if there's more people in the hobby in general, then they'll be able to spill over into Boards and Dice and check out their games as well. I think it's really awesome. Like, any cool, interesting new ways to like grow the hobby and grow the outreach and bring more people together to play games around the table, I think is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those, and I'm glad that this is how our company functions, right? That this is not just me trying to, I mean, it's the whole team behind me as well. So even if I'm the one that is there, I have the full support of the team in doing this, right? And the fact that we all feel that there's tremendous value in doing that. And of course, it's one of those things that when you look at it on paper, okay, well, the cost of attending a convention in general, providing additional volunteers from our end, plus the cost of being there and the sponsorship itself. I mean, yeah, there are certainly costs involved. So it's not something, since we won't be selling anything, we don't get any immediate return on that, right? But the impact that has on the future and the impact that it has on the hobby in general for us is something that we see value in. We see even just something as simple, okay, if I sit down at a table with someone, I play a game and I'm wearing this shirt, right? In some way, our brand gets associated with people having fun, and that's all you can ask for.
That's awesome. I know one of my, besides at conventions and seeing you in chat and stuff like that, one of my first impressions of meeting you was when I was helping Sam run one of his Memoir 44 games. Yeah. And he's like, Rainer's going to be probably going to come in and be the captain for the team or whatever. And I always thought that was fun, how you played a whole bunch of Memoir 44 games against Sam. And
yeah, that was fun.
Helping try to corral the internet.
Yeah, that was a fun experience. And of course, with Sam, I mean, of course, he and I, we knew each other. We'd met in the past and seen each other at conventions and everything. But this was also something that Memoir 44 is one of my favorite games. And I was like, oh, Sam is going to play against the internet. I wanted to be there and if nothing else, give Sam a hard time in the chat if he was making a dumb move, right? But then it just became that the one of the games they asked, because he always asked, okay, have the internet or whoever was live, have them choose someone, and I offered to do it. No one else really stepped up right away. I was like, you know what, I'd be happy to do it because I know the game. It wouldn't be a problem at all to do it. And then we just had such a good experience. Like, we had a ton of fun in the chat and just talking about it, and it went really well for us, really poorly for Sam. And then it just became a thing, right, where the next time then, well, they wanted me to be the captain as well. And of course it was a very, very much a collaborative effort. It's just that you need someone who either makes the final call on things or who just takes care of typing in the chat what the move is, right? But no, that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. How do you feel like publisher, do you like try to like work and create relationships with a lot of the media people out there? And how do you go about like doing that to build you guys' brand?
As far as relationships go, I think I mean, the approach is very much like I was talking about when it comes to Dice Tower East, right? Is that we want to, it's perfectly okay to talk to people, to build relationships and friendships without trying to sell something, right? I don't have to always try to, okay, I will do this for you if you do that for me, or I want you to look at this game or whatever. I mean, yes, we do. We want people to look at the games, play them, and review them. But it's such a close-knit hobby and close-knit industry. And I think sometimes I wonder, like, people who go to a convention and you just see all these gamers, and it's such a friendly environment. You can go and you can sit down and play with a stranger, right? You can go to your local game store if they have gaming days and gaming nights, and you can go there and you can just play games and have fun with complete strangers. It's such an inviting hobby, but I don't think... I wonder sometimes if people realize just how close-knit it is also on the other side, right? Where people are really... We're in this together. There's no... I don't feel that because some other publisher is publishing a good game, that doesn't threaten us, right?
Right.
It's just, if people make good games, that's good. I don't want them to make bad games. I want them to make good games and be successful, because in the end, that's going to help us as well. Anything that is good for the hobby is good for us. Then, of course, it becomes a thing where with each like I'm trying to at different conventions and so forth, I'm trying to do something that makes it so that the experience that they have with me is different, like the candy thing, for example. Just I don't know, I don't remember why or how I started it, but I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna bring some different candy and have people try it. And it becomes a thing where you interact with people, even if it's over a piece of candy, right? It's like, oh, you loved it or you hated it, but we had a moment together. And just talking to people and talking about games or talking about anything else that is going on, and then you build these friendships, and it's amazing how, I mean, there are some people that I only see like once a year, and still when you see them, you're so happy because you know that, okay, these are friends that you have in the industry. And it might sound like, okay, well, you can't go and call everyone a friend if you only see them once a year. No, there are some people, this industry is full with amazing people that even if I just see them a couple of times or once a year, those are still moments that you treasure, because you're just having a good time together, and you'll play a game, or you'll just talking, right? So it's very much that way, with, at least from my perspective, that what drives me in general is also how I try to approach when I am interacting with media, even if it's for a scheduled demo, right? For example, I remember at Origins, I was showing off some of our games. This was actually 2018, so just before Teotihuacan came out, and Sam and I had been doing the Sam versus the Internet with Memoir 44 before, and he did the little chat afterwards. It's like, okay, you go and you show off the demo on screen, then if there are questions, go sit at this other table and stuff. And we were just having this fun moment of banter between us and talked about Memoir 44 and everything. And it's those moments, right, where you get,
for sure,
just have something that matters, and yeah.
I think it's interesting. The more and more I've gone to board game conventions, I feel like I really enjoy playing the games, but for me, it's become less about playing like the hot new thing and more about just interacting with the different people I know and my different friends that I only get to see at these conventions and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? And just hoping everybody's doing good. Like, hey, I heard you guys had this new game. I hope it's going well for you. I don't know. It's just interesting going around and seeing everybody and building those relationships. Because in the end, it's like we're all gamers. We're all excited about board games. And I don't necessarily have to sit down and play a game with you to have an awesome, interesting conversation and just
we don't even
build friendships.
We don't even have to have the same likes and dislikes, right? I mean, there could be a game that you really like that I'm just meh on, and we can still have a good time, right? So it's not there's no issue with people having different likes in board games, or there might even be a game of ours that you don't like, right? Or it might be someone else, another publisher that I'm talking to, and they have a game that I don't care much for, and it's fine. We can still be friends and still have fun together. So, yeah.
I mean, some people like pepper licorice. Some people hate pepper licorice. I mean, it's just the way it is, you know.
It's exactly how it is.
That's awesome.
I have a salty kind that I need to bring sometime.
That might be interesting as well. So as far as games themselves go, what are your favorite types of games? Like, what are games that you're really excited about playing, or like games that like you like to throw on the table?
In general, I'm very much an omnivore. I just like games in general. It doesn't matter if it's the heavy, thinky Euro-style games, or if it's action-packed Ameritrash games. I just like playing games in general. The way I got into the hobby, as in started working in the hobby. So there's a game that came out in 2012 called Exodus Proxima Centauri, which at the time was by NSKN Games, and that game just spoke to me. Right, it became my favorite game. And one that I just loved playing. And then they had
I'm still so mad that I haven't played that game because I love 4X games so much. It's like, why haven't I played Exodus yet? I just never was around anybody who actually owned it. So
we can make that happen.
I should try to play it because I love 4X. I mean, obviously, but you know, it's good stuff.
But no, so then when the expansion for it came out, so that was it was released on Kickstarter, and I backed it and everything, and I was super excited for it because, oh hey, here's an expansion that was going to add some asymmetry, like asymmetrical factions and so forth to the game. And then when I got the game or the expansion, it made what was already my favorite game, it just made it so much better.
That's awesome.
So then what I did was I sent an email to the publisher, just one of those nice, friendly, hey, you know what, this game is fantastic, love the expansion, because this is my favorite game. I don't know, like, I was already a little bit familiar with how long the development process can be, so I knew that usually something that comes out in a year or two, I mean, right now, for us, for example, I mean, we're already talking about games that are 2 years out, right? So I knew that it was possible that they already had other plans, but I said, you know what? I don't know what you've planned, but here are things that I would like to see in the game, and do with it whatever you like. And they emailed back, the designer emailed back, and he's like, you know what? We didn't have any plans, but we like your ideas. So why don't you work on an expansion for it? And then that was how we started working together. The expansion was eventually released, and we started doing business together, even though we'd never actually met in person.
That's crazy.
And it was just one of those things when we finally met in person, which was at Spiel in Essen, Germany. Everything just clicked. It was like we'd been friends forever, and now we work full time together. So
that's awesome. Do you have any more like design like passions that you eventually want to do? I know you said you working on a game. Are you ever like planning on trying to make more of your own stuff?
I mean, I have ideas of things. Some of them are like I have an idea where I'd like to one day have a game about Black Friday, for example. I don't know why. It was just something a few years ago. I was like,
I worked at Target for 10 years. That's like the nightmare, playing the Black Friday game. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I want, it's something that, like, I'm not a fan of Black Friday. But I was like, you know what, there must be a way to make a game about Black Friday and have the game be enjoyable, right?
Well, if you need any consultation on how Black Friday works from behind the scenes of a retail person, I can give you all the secrets of how it went down in the place I used to be employed by.
No, but otherwise, the nice thing is that right now I still get to I still have an outlet for those urges of designing, or because I get to be part of the development process.
Oh, for sure. That's awesome.
So I still get to, and in fact, in some ways, it's actually a relief because someone else did all the hard work of designing a game, coming up with everything, and making it work. And I get to be part of something. Okay, there's already a game, and now we just need to make it into a product, into something that can.
I would say that development part's a hard part too, though, because you gotta tweak all the little knobs and make sure it plays just right.
Well, and sometimes you have to sit and play test things over and over and over, and even run play tests with external testers, right? Just to make sure that you iron out little kinks and stuff. And it's a process, but it's a process that I enjoy. Because I care about it. It's not always fun in the moment to, okay, here we're on test 58, and we thought we had it balanced since test 20, right? And you're just, but in the end, when you're like, oh man, this is now done. Like we are sending tomorrow, we're sending to Keno to print. It's such a nice feeling of saying, oh look, the game, it's done. It's everything is ready for it. It has all the artwork. It has all the rules. It has gone through a lengthy editing and playtesting process, and the rules have been edited, and now it's done. But the nice thing is too that I get to be part of it. Like for some people, especially other people within the company, their experience with the game ends now, because it's like, okay, well now it goes to print, and they are specifically just working on in the development.
The next game, basically.
But it's because I'm at conventions and stuff, and I'm also helping out with the marketing side of things, I get to be this game gets to be part of my job for a much longer period of time, and I get to see it from the very first prototype to the final product, and then at conventions and so forth. So it's a long but rewarding process, and especially being able to see the game through its different life cycles as well.
I don't think the consumer normally realizes how long like the pipeline for a board game is. Like, because of all the playtesting and everything that has to be done, and all of the development and graphic design and manufacturing and shipping and all that stuff, like the production line for a board game, like when you guys actually give the board game to distributors, get games in stores, I mean, you guys have been working on it for like what, at least 2 years minimum, probably more.
Yep.
And then before that, and the designer is designing the game, trying to pitch it to publishers before that. So it's been worked on for even more years before that.
Yeah. I mean, there are some games, if you look at, and of course it depends on the game, right? So there are some games that have a very short design cycle, but it could be that it's a game that someone has worked on for 5, 8, 10 years, right? And now finally they have gotten it to the point where it was ready to be picked up by a publisher. And then, like you said, the publishing process, usually, I mean, it's for sure, even if it's a game, let's say that we took a game that is perfect, it's still a year before that game comes out.
Right.
Because it just, okay, we have to commission artwork, we have to book a slot for when this game is going to be sent to the factory, we have to make sure that we have it in our marketing plan so that we can properly market and sell it, we have to talk to local station partners, and we have to make sure that, I mean, it's a very long process, even if you have a product that is done today, right? It's still not going to come out for a year.
How do you guys like determine or try to figure out, like, do you have like a best time of year to release games, or like best time of year to have a Kickstarter, or is it just you have like a line, it's like, okay, this is coming out here, this is coming out here? Like, do you try to aim games at certain times?
We do. First of all, so it used to be that Board and Dice and NSCAN Games were two separate companies in the past. And one of the first things that we did when we merged the two companies was that we cut a lot of games out from the planned releases, right?
Gotcha.
Right now we do. Let's start from the second half of the year. We for sure have Escape Tales comes out in October every year. So that's an annual release for our Escape Tales series. And then we have a medium heavy Euro game that comes out at Essen. At Gen Con, we also have a medium heavy to heavy game. So we're always having two of those in the second part of the year. The first part of the year, that is where we do, for example, we typically do some kind of Kickstarter in that part of the year. So this year, for example, we did Dark Ages. We've done in the past Yedo and Snowdonia and so forth. But the Kickstarter game, that can be shifted a little bit. Part of it depends on, okay, how long does it take for the previous game to go into production and be sent out to backers, right? But otherwise, it's also something that it depends a little bit on just the timing of things. So that's one of those things that is a bit more fluid. But typically, it's something that we reserve for the first half of the year. But otherwise, we have around the beginning of March, which is when, at least for us, the convention season starts. You have a couple of smaller conventions. We also have Gamma, which is the industry show that is at the beginning of March. We typically have something that releases then, and then we have something at the end of May, beginning of June, around the UK Games Expo and Origins timeframe.
Right.
And the one that is in June is typically a bit lighter, more on the medium light side, still typically a Euro game. And then expansions and stuff can either go at Gen Con or Spiel, or they will come out. So we had recently we had in March a small expansion come out for Teotihuacan, because that fit to do in the early part of the year. So it depends a little bit on exactly what it is that is releasing, but we have in general a schedule and a plan for what needs to release when.
I'm sure for like all publishers, like hitting the Gen Con and Essen like at the right time and making sure, all right, because I've seen people like stressing on the day, like, oh my goodness, we had to airship this in because this wasn't across the ocean yet. Yeah, that always happens for people. How much of that is a big deal for a publisher at those conventions?
I mean, if you don't get a game that, especially one that is releasing, right? If it's a new release that you have worked for at least 6 months planning for that release after it's been sent. So like right now we are sending tomorrow a game to be printed that is coming out of Gen Con. So that's basically, I mean, that's 4 months away. We have been planning for the print date and for the release for a couple of months already, right? So it's going to be a 6-month process. If that doesn't show up, it can be disastrous, right? Now, generally, the convention is not necessarily something that is, but we're not doing conventions because it's a big moneymaker, right? Sure, sales are typically good at a convention, but they just need to justify us going there, right? But if you don't have a big game, I know, for example, for Spiel, just this past October, leading up to that, there were a few changes in the German import system, and I know there were games that were held up in customs for other publishers where it's like, okay, well, they didn't release in time for Spiel. Yeah, they would release the week after, but now it's too late. So it can be, if that's something that you get caught in, that can really be a big deal, and especially because in the end the margins are this is not an industry that you join or become part of if you want to make money.
Oh, sure.
It's just so anything that happens that throws a wrench into that can be definitely disastrous.
And I'm sure getting those games into the hands of people during Gen Con and Essen and everything like that helps like prime the excitement for the game for all the hardcore gamers go to these conventions and buy up a lot of these games, but then the word of mouth can hopefully spread if the game's really exciting and people are really excited about it, and hopefully that pays off into the holiday season when everybody's like, I want this under my tree, that sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, you always have people that are the early adopters, and it's we want them to feel taken care of, right? Because there are people that are like, okay, I need to have this when it comes out. I need to be there and get it from the publisher. At the same time, we also realize that there are people that either can't attend conventions for whatever reason. They're costly to attend, or they
for sure.
it might be they can't get time off of work, whatever the reason is. So we started doing a couple of years ago where we do constantly global releases. So if something releases at Gen Con, that doesn't mean that you have to be there and then you have to wait 3 to 6 months for it to come out. Now it's going to be available in the store the same day, so you can go.
That's awesome.
And pick it up locally, right? So it's just, and again, that's one of those things where I think as a publisher we have to also realize that our role is to listen to consumers, listen to what people want. Yes, we make games and we decide which ones we publish, but we also need to make sure that we make the games that people want to play. We can't, if we don't have sales or if people are not buying our games, that's despite the competition and all the games that are coming out, it's up to us to make sure that we publish the games that people want to play and buy.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's really exciting to see like when all these games come out and like the big spectacle that is all of these exciting things, and when there's media people talking about it or your friends are posting about it on Facebook, it just makes people be like, oh man, I want to play that game too.
Yeah.
So as far as like you guys' upcoming games, is there anything exciting that you guys are having come out soon? I know you've been showing off the one game, your Egyptian game. I don't necessarily want to try to say the name of it because you guys have these ridiculous T-word games that are hard to say.
See, but they're all sensible though. So the Egyptian one, so it's called Tekenu. Tekenu means obelisk in ancient Egyptian. So it's just, I mean, it's basically it's the central mechanism of the.
But there's
the game.
Already an obelisk board game out there, so you couldn't name it Obelisk.
Yeah, but obelisk doesn't sound as.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, we have so the next one that is coming out is again on the lighter side of thing, and that one's going to be releasing in May, and that one's called Traintopia, and that one it's obviously it's about building a train network. So you have these tiles that you're drafting. There's a general drafting. Each round there will be a card that you reveal that shows you, okay, certain wooden pieces that might be different types of passengers, commuters that want to travel through certain types of districts and so forth, but then also tiles that you can draft and add to a network and expand it. So that one is coming out in May, and that one has been very well received. It's a nice like family plus weight game that you can sit down, you can easily play it with more casual people, or even people that are fairly new to gaming in general, or with younger kids. But at the same time, if you sit down as gamers, you see that, okay, well, there's another layer to it, because not only do I need to worry about the routes that I'm building, I cannot leave this tile for you because I see what you're going to do with it. Or I need to make sure that I'm drafting this piece because there are only so many of them, and I really need it now, and so forth. So it's nice in that it's a game that it has some depth to it, but also something that is approachable and easy to play.
You gotta hate draft sometimes.
Sometimes you have to, yeah. and sometimes you do it because, you know what, I could take this other piece, but I know you really want this one, and I could use it too, so I'm just gonna take it. Yeah.
Nice.
And then we have Tekkeno that is scheduled for release at Gen Con, so end of July. And that one is a co-design between Daniele Tassini and David Turczi. And it has this 3D, about 8 inches tall obelisk on the game board. And then there's some mechanisms that symbolizes basically the shadow that is cast by the obelisk as the light shines from one direction. And there will be dice that are placed around the obelisk, and depending on the color of the die and whether it's currently in the light or in the shadow, some of the dice will be either pure or tainted or sometimes forbidden, so you can't draft them at all. Gotcha. And you want to make sure that you not only can draft the dice, because if they become forbidden, well, now you may not be able to take that action that you wanted to take. However, if you create an imbalance between the amount of pure and tainted dice that you're taking, there might be penalties that you suffer for that. So multiple just interesting things for you to consider as you're planning your actions. Saying, okay, I need to build a statue this round. Okay, well, it means I need to take that die, but that one's going to end up on the tainted side of the scales. How is that going to impact the when we account for the balance and so forth? So that one's that's our Gen Con release. And then tomorrow as of the time of recording this,
well, this will come out a Monday from now, so it will already be happening.
Yes. So tomorrow we are announcing a game which is also designed by David Turczi called Tawan Tinsuyu. And this one is Tawan Tinsuyu is the name of it means 4 regions. So that's what the Inca called their empire. So it's based on the Inca Empire, and it has a bit of worker placement with workers that you never take them back. So once you place a worker on the board, it's on that spot forever. But as you're placing more workers, they come in 5 different types, and when you place a worker next to another worker of the same type, you get additional bonus actions that you can take from that. And there's a bit of a rondel, some area control, and so forth. So that's also one that we're really excited about. So as of the time when this is out, people will already know about it.
That's awesome. Are there any special things you guys do to try to make your games stand apart in the market? I know for one, the artwork on almost at least the cover art and a lot of the artwork in your games is really awesome. Is there a lot of different things that you guys focus on to try to make your game stand apart?
I mean, I think it's important for a game it needs to look good, right? It needs to, and this is also, I mean, part of it is we want to be proud of what the game looks like. When someone is coming to us at a convention or we are demoing it and showing it off, we want the game to look good. But we also know that both retailers, they want the game that looks good on their shelf. Consumers want the game that looks good. So obviously the way the game looks, everything from the cover to the artwork and inside the game, we want to make sure that this looks both appealing when you're looking at it, but that it's also functional. Of course, artwork is sometimes subjective, so there might be something someone says, "Oh well, yeah, you say you want them to look good, but that game over there, I just like how it looks," and we understand that, right? But we're at least trying to make something that will be appealing for people. If possible, we also try to put something in the game that is a functional gimmick. So, for example, if you take Teotihuacan, for example, the tiles in there, they could easily have been just regular size punch board, and functionally that would have been the same. Right. But we wanted it to be more of a 3D look to it. So there are these nice 8mm thick wooden tiles that you're placing, and it just looks much more impressive. Same thing for Tekkeno that is coming out. In fact, I have, even though this is just a prototype, something that I ordered off of Amazon, but when we've been playing it just for playtesting, I want to make sure, okay, we have an obelisk that will sit centrally on the game board. And it also helps you visualize, okay, that's the obelisk that is casting the shadow that you're that is one of the mechanisms. So if it's something that you can make the game look good but do something a little bit extra, either a functional tweak to it, sometimes it could be something as simple as having recessed player boards, for example, where things fit in there just so that they don't slide around, or having something that that improves the table presence or the presentation. Because, I mean, we're all gamers. We want to play games that look good, that look impressive on the table, and quite honestly, that sometimes we can use that as a way to justify our purchase and be like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have gotten that game, but look how amazing this looks, right? So it's just one of those things that it helps enhance the enjoyment of the game, helps people feel good about their purchase, or help justify it sometimes. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's definitely like so many games coming out. Like I've said it on this show a bunch of times. There's a lot of really good games that come out. You can't play all the good games. You can't even play all the great games that are coming out now. So as a publisher, you really have to try to find a way to help like catch the consumer's eye and get out there and show your games off to people, so that way they'll be excited and tell their friends. You know.
Yep. Well, and we realize that too, right? Even though, like, some of the games that we have from our past catalog, right? There might be ones that are doing really well for us, but we also realize that it's probably safe to say that the majority, even a game that does really well, the majority of gamers still haven't played it. You take something that has done really well in the past 12 months. Look at Wingspan. Okay, lots of people have heard of it, but there's still people that they've never heard of it, they've never played it, they don't know about it. And that's the reality, right? That's what we're dealing with, is that you can't publish games with the mindset that, okay, I need to be seen by everyone or whatever. No, you need to. That's also why you have to take care of the people that do support you, that do buy your games, because they are really valuable. They're your customers. If you lose them, not only did you lose a customer, you now have to fight against all the other games that are coming out, trying to develop a new customer base and stuff. So you definitely have to treat your role as a publisher with a great deal of humility and respect. And I think that in the long run that helps as well.
I know you said you guys focus on, like, okay, we're going to have like a medium weight game, we're going to have like a heavier weight game coming out these different times a year. Do you do that kind of like as a way to, I know like people coming in new to the hobby might not be able to pick up like, I'm going to play Teotihuacan, like my first game. Like, I don't know that that's like the game people are going to at the beginning. Do you kind of do that sort of stuff to help like bridge people into playing bigger and more interesting games, or more heavy games, if that's what they're into?
I don't know that we're definitely not trying to cater to everyone, right?
Gotcha.
Because we would rather make games that we are good at making, and have the interest in our brand and in our games spread through people that like similar types of games.
Gotcha.
Now, the reason why we have the specific release schedule, so for example, the Spiel fair in Essen, Germany, that's a very Eurocentric crowd. Like those are the majority of the games that sell and that are played in Europe. So it makes sense that we have a new release coming out at that time. Gen Con is similar. It's a show where more of the hardcore gamers are going there. So we do a similar weight game then. But then early in the year, that's where you get people who, it's after the holidays, people are they're excited about it's spring, and they're looking forward to maybe vacation over the summer. And you have people that they may have a game collection of 5 games, and they walk into a store and they're like, you know what? Let's buy a new game this year. We haven't bought one for 10 years. Let's buy something. And those games are the ones that we try to make them. They need to fit in a very specific niche, right? We want to make sure that the game can. So we put the description of how the game is played. Effectively, you could explain the rules of the game from the back of the box, right? So
That's awesome.
as you look at the back of the box, this is how the game plays. If you like that, you will understand it. That's obviously not true for a game like Teotihuacan. There's no way we could explain on the back of the box.
The font would be really, really small. Really small.
Yes, they would. But that's why we have those games releasing at the first half of the year, right? Because it caters to the types of customers and that time. And even though we started with more of the medium to medium heavy type Euro games, it's still adjacent enough to the medium light ones. Are still ones that we can make, and we know that we can do them justice, right? So that's just why if we're going to have something release in the first half of the year, it needs to be lighter to cater better to the people and to also the retailers.
That's awesome. Well, it looks like we are at an hour now. But yeah, I want to say thanks so much for coming on the show. It's definitely been a blast. Yeah. If anybody is interested in learning more about Board and Dice or interacting with you as you're being crazy on different social media or in live stream chats, how can people find you?
So they can find information about us on either our website, boardanddice.com, also on any type of social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, Board and Dice. I can be found at Rainer Ahlfors on Twitter. You can look me up on Facebook as well. And if you're on Board Game Geek, you have a question about one of our games, I'm the one that will be there answering questions about them. I'll be happy to interact and chat with you there. Same thing if you see any of the live streams, whether that be on the Dice Tower or other media. I'm likely the one that you'll be interacting. So yeah, just say hi and be happy to talk to you, whether it's about one of our games or something else.
And if you want disgusting licorice candy, hit him up at a convention and you might throw some at
Yes, yeah, just come to our booth at any convention. Especially, I don't go to all of the ones in Europe, obviously, but any of the U.S. conventions, especially the bigger ones, come to our booth. There will be some kind of unique candy, some kind of experience, whether that be pepper-flavored licorice or really salty, just really tasty chocolate. Something.
Man, I'll have to come sometimes when you have something like actually good. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks everybody
Thank
for
you.
checking us out. These are live, or they come out on the Dice Tower on Mondays at 5 p.m. Definitely make sure to check us out on iTunes as well. If you search Spaces Between, if you just want the audio version of the podcast. I've had several people ask, like, oh man, I want to watch this at work, but I can't watch YouTube. Check out the audio version on iTunes. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming out, and thanks for Rainer for coming and talking to us about board games. See everybody next time. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.